Hello, welcome to this latest edition of Digital Badge Academy's webcast series. I'm Jim Daniels, your co-host, here along with fellow co-host David Leeser, who's going to kick things off for us. David?
Yeah, we have a great guest today. It's Emmanuel Jackson from Evanston Technology Partners. And I think, Emmanuel, we met years ago through the IBM program where you were working on the IBM apprenticeship program. I think that's where we first met. And most recently, you gave a talk at the One Ed Tech Digital Credential Summit. And I thought you kicked it off just beautifully with a quote from Martin Luther King. If it's okay, I hope I don't butcher the quote, but the quote, I'll read it so that makes it easier. But the quote was, "It's all right to tell a man to lift himself up by his bootstraps, but it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps." And what did you mean by that?
Well, I mean, what I meant is that, we have to find a way to equip people in order to be able to help them to gain some utility, to be able to go out and make a living. But before they do that, they need to be equipped with some skills. They need to be equipped with certifications and things like that that would attract an actual employer that would allow them to go out into the world and make a living and make a contribution to themselves, to their family, and to the community overall.
Yeah, I mean, there's another one. There's another quote about the rungs on the ladder too, and it's kind of like there are not enough rungs on the ladder for people to get from the bottom to the top these days.
Well, but I think what we learned through my experience, we can certainly do these things. We can do them through certifications through IBM with their new collar program. We can do them through certifications through AWS and Google and Microsoft and those other things. I mean, I have evidence that we've worked with people where we've actually been able to, move people from poverty and out of poverty within 6 to 8 months because they got trained and certified in things like cybersecurity within a 6 to 8 month period. They went from having nothing to really building a career and changing their family and their lives probably forever in a 6 to 8 months. And so we know that those things can actually happen. But I think along the way, as you and I have met what I think now it's been since 2019, believe it or not. So it's been a long time now. So it's 5 years. But part of the process in which I'm learning of all of these things is that this is America, and America is a melting pot. And so we learned that within that melting pot, especially in the last few years, that how you can gain a way into participating in the American dream, that in this way or that way does not have to be the same way. We have people who get here through becoming a plumber, operators, sheet metal workers, HVAC workers. And on the technology side, we know for a fact that higher ed is only contributing 10% of all the talent that's needed to the technology sector. So that means that there's plenty of room and space for us to learn how to do something different.
So you mentioned equipping people to be able to achieve all these things. So, and you mentioned a couple of things, certification and some other methods to help people, go off and get the skills. But can you dive into that a little bit deeper in terms of what you mean by equipping people? Because what's curious to me is when you come in contact with one of these individuals, how do you get them to understand that there's more than one pathway to employment when you talk about skill development and gaining skills and expertise? So just curious on that front.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I mean, what we did was that this was out of selfish reasons, right? We had no other reason than to train people because we're looking for employees. And we needed employees who were skilled in cybersecurity, who were skilled in cloud technology. And so we had to work with our vendors like IBM or CompTIA or AWS to use the tools that they had to do it. But when you start off with that initial conversation, there has to be some level of assessment being done. And the assessment that we used was My Inner Genius that was originally introduced to us by IBM. And it gave us a snapshot. And it also a participant that we were looking at, a snapshot of what their proclivities were towards certain technologies. And it gave a long list of things that they qualify or didn't qualify for. That is where we started. And then we started with an actual interview. With us, we like to take a slow walk to the altar, if you will. We've lived in a world for many years, for decades, if you will, where people hire people who they don't know, and people go to work for people who they don't know. And so starting off with My Inner Genius really helped us gain some insight. And it really, what it did allow us to also do, it gave us a tool to have a conversation. It gave us a tool to have many different types of conversation with that prospective employee. And so that's where you actually start. And you began to work towards that. As for us, it was to benefit our company. And benefiting our company means also being able to effectively service our clients.
So you start out with, let's first of all find out what people are going to love and what they're going to be successful doing. And you use technology to do that. And then what do you do next? I mean, after that, then of course, then like you said, then you go through an interview process and you mentor, you work with them. What are the next steps? What are these rungs on the ladder, so to speak, to get people, like you said, you can get people out of poverty in less than a year. So you start out with, first of all, let's figure out what they're going to love and be successful doing. Then what?
Well, one of the things that I did leave out, where we always have to be cognizant in the needs of changes in the industry. I don't need as many coders as I used to, but I certainly need people who still have Python skills we actually do. So those things become really important to us. So what we do is that we have the conversations, we do the interviews. You don't have to be a large company to do these things. We ask the participants, like college, you don't get trained. So what we had to do is find a mechanism in which we can get people trained. And so we didn't have the millions of dollars to hire people to train them to come in every day for 5 days a week to get trained. So we went online. We had our own instructors. We had instructors from the vendors like AWS who came in and who trained our people Tuesdays and Wednesday nights. Cybersecurity, we partnered with Perscalis, and that training was for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 5 months. And that's a lot of hours.
You talked about, you're a smaller company. You don't have, an endless pocket of money to be able to achieve this. At the same time, this is kind of nirvana from my standpoint in terms of being able to help those, the disenfranchised or the underserved, even though you have, and by the way, which I don't think it's a selfish need, it is a business need, right? To get people trained and hired and, to fulfill all of the business objectives that you have. So it's kind of a win-win. It's just interesting. I've heard so many big, large corporations, and you hear all the buzz across the workplace about, people being able to, whether it be apprenticeship programs or one program or another, but there's a lot more talk than there is walk. And it's interesting, you as a small business owner have managed to do this, end to end and be so successful with it. And without a unlimited budget. It just goes to say that any organization that wanted to take this route to be able to identify potential talent and get that talent trained and onboarded and give them a path to employment while at the same time fulfilling their own business objectives and talent needs. It's very possible. I mean, you've done it. If you can do it with some of the constraints that you have on you, it seems like every employer out there should be looking at this.
Well, I think it becomes a level of what the intention is. It also comes to the level you have to find out where the employer itself is in their journey for whatever wherever they actually are. So we believe that being small was an advantage for us. I'm a smaller company. I'm not a publicly held company, so I don't have a quarter that I have to answer to. I don't have analysts I have to answer to. And I think that becomes a really important factor. But I think as I looked at it as a CEO of a company, as I looked at it as a person who felt that, even as a small business, you work in cybersecurity, you're looking to develop people not only for the benefit of your company or the employee, you're looking to develop people for the benefit and the safety and security of this country. I have healthcare clients. There's been a huge level of breaches in that particular area. I would like to particularly say that, when we make these actions and we make the efforts to get people trained and we get them digital badges and we get them satisfied and we get them certified, who are we really helping here? I think we're helping, everyone in this process. I think part of the process is that we have in this country is that we're taking care of way too many people when we really don't have to. I think that there's a way that we can find out to make people useful. I think, when we talk to people and I tell them about the channel partner or business programs with these technology vendors, 99% of the American public has no idea what that ecosystem is. They don't know what the ecosystem of actually technology is. They think they're going to be doing business directly with actually big tech. 80% of big tech goes through the distribution process, and the distribution process works with business partners like myself. And so when you're looking to be employed in technology, the chances are you're going to be employed by IBM, Google, Microsoft, NVIDIA business partner, because that's where most of the things happen. And through that process is where we have access to a ton of training apparatus, huge training apparatus. That's where we get all the content. That's where we get all the certifications. And that's where we get all of the expertise that we need to build, to do business in the marketplace and to sell and service equipment and software. But it also gives us those particular assets to make sure that we get people trained and certified as well. It is a good system. It is a system I think many other industries should actually look at as it look to bring people into the workforce and give them utility. So what we like to say, as we mentioned at the beginning about the boots, is that you ask the bootless man to pull himself up by the bootstraps. Well, the key is that we have to find a way to give people boots. And once we give them boots, they can pull themselves up, because this process is not easy. And I'd like to reiterate that to anyone that I work with. These certifications is not easy. If you go through cybersecurity certification, it takes a certain level of commitment to actually do that. So you're not going to have frat parties while you're doing this. You have to do this 8 hours a day. Then there's study, then there's work. The whole bootstrap thing. Once you get the opportunity to give people some boots, they have to pull themselves up by doing the work, by doing the commitment. I was saying before, I don't know if you caught this, certification training is not exactly like going to college. I know people want to think that is easy because of certification. It seems like it is a condensed amount of time. The fact is, it's not. It's incremental training. It's incremental time. But at the end of the day, you're going to do the work. So, if you look at cybersecurity training. You look at just looking at becoming an analyst, security plus CSSP. You're looking at what? 40 hours a week for 5 to 6 months. What college class do you go for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week? None.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, college is halftime, basically.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you on that. So, okay, we started with, hey, let's first of all find out what people are born to do or what they're going to love, then get them into the training program or do the interviews, meet with them, get them into a boot camp of training of sorts that is many hours a day for many months. And I think you also mentioned, though, that a lot of people think this could be done online, but you're taking people that are in poverty. They may not even have the discipline to understand how to do some of these things. And I think that you had brought up a point that, this requires mentorship and coaching as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't think that
Well,
that's necessary.
Well, what's happened there, that is the really hard work, right? And I'll be honest with you, that's not the work that we really do so much. We do the mentorship. We certainly do that because we think that mentorship is needed at any level that you are in life. As long as you have someone who is more experienced, who has more expertise than you do, you can use that person as a mentor. And that's a really good thing to have. But the parts that become really important is that when you look at people, we use my inner genius to make sure, number one, that people qualify, right? So that takes a lot of things off of us. But my inner genius does not give you some idea where a person lives. It does not give us an idea about what level could help. So, we had people who trained with us for the AWS solutions architect certification. This one guy would usually take his break and on his phone and do the certification in his car while he was at work. There's certain things we certainly do not do online at all. We feel that human interaction is still very important, and that bringing people together, people who want to follow you to the water cooler or to the kitchen and want to ask questions that they were too embarrassed to ask out separately. But it is important that people, even in the online classes, believe it or not, people took the impetus to go out and create study groups on their own with these people. They
Interesting.
went out and they created things, and this is what happened. Now, and that's always important. So, yeah, we do understand that some people from certain communities, 70% of them cannot work from home.
Interesting. So, so up front, there's the My Inner Genius piece, to help people understand what their potential would be, where they would potentially be, uh, what they would potentially be good at. So I would assume that that provides some degree of encouragement and motivation to these individuals. Obviously, the mentoring part, which you mentioned, which is hugely important. That, in fact, it may be the most important, from my standpoint, my own experience. And then incrementally, as this process unfolds, these individuals, obviously, they're going through training, they're getting certifications and so forth, and they're earning other credentials.
Mhm.
In some cases, badges. Perhaps it's not a badge in some cases. So, but you're not specifically issuing any badges. You're more so on the consumer side of this, right? So I'm curious as to what you see, what your experience is looking, and watching these individuals go through this process and earning these digital credentials, how that's impacting them, and then ultimately how you as a consumer are taking advantage of those credentials that they're earning.
The impacts are like the training, it is incremental. So one of the things that you see is that as they go along through each stage, through each quiz and whatever you have, um, they basically begin to gain confidence. And the confidence is what becomes attractive to us. It becomes attractive to our partners. And that's where the magic begins. And so, what we saw in a few cases is that once people got trained, and I think the magic really happens, right? We want to know what the real magic is and all of this is when people actually get hired, when they get a job. When you go from making zero to $87,500 a year, what began to happen is that that's what the magic happens. So there's incremental progress at every single level. There's even incremental progress after they get hired, after they work for us. And some of our people have gone to work for AT&T and AWS, and those two companies they're good partners to us, and they still are. And so what happened is that we learned and we saw what the power of knowledge is. So after you're working, these people they enroll in college. They wanted more. They wanted to be better. And so I think as we all look at this, is that it doesn't have to be a straight line. The question is, what do you do when you come to a fork in the road? I heard one wise man said that you simply go straight. That there may be a mountain that you need to climb there,
Yeah.
and
That's a,
the real reward may be on the top of that mountain, or the things that you may gain access to while you're climbing that mountain.
Well, so you bring up a really good point there, and that is in the higher education piece. I've heard so many in that sector express concern about alternative credentials, or maybe more specifically, alternative pathways to employment, as though, oh, a degree's not necessary. A person, they can get employed and go off and have a great career and never attend college in that. But what you've seen, I believe, is that individuals come through and they find this alternative pathway to employment that turns out to be truly life changing. And then once they have the financial means and they've achieved some degree of economic mobility, they're motivated to then go to college, I believe. Is that
Well,
is that what I'm hearing?
that has happened, but don't, I mean, I will be very frank with you. I believe that as we are entering this process, as we see people who gain certification and digital badges who go to college, in some ways, higher education it needs to help the American worker to gain the utility to work for these corporations, people who pay the taxes, especially with these in these public schools, even in private schools where they receive financial aid to go to school. And what has to happen is, I believe, because I believe that higher ed can be extremely useful to make that work. And so, but I don't think they need to run and hide and not be part of this process. And I think that is very important. But I think it's a challenge, different challenge in different states. The Milwaukee Technical Community College there, they've gained a complete program because the United States Board of Education lowered the amount of numbers that you can use for your Pell Grant. They can use their Pell Grant to gain certifications and pay for the certifications while training with Milwaukee Technical College. So not only do you get to be a part of the certification training, that person becomes part of the college ecosystem where they can simply keep on going after they get a job.
yeah, that's fantastic. So, how can people do what you're doing, or how can they partner with you, or how can they learn more about what you're doing? Or can they partner with you?
Well, they
Or
can always, that's a very good question, because what we've done has been so insular, and it's been very specific to really just us. Right now, we are partnering with people, organizations to get people prepared. So we are partnering with a company called Black Math Genius. We're partnering with City Colleges of Chicago, or World Business Chicago, or Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership. So we're doing those things now, and we're looking at a summer program of anywhere between 25 and 50 young people. We have never charged a single solitary cent for training, and that would surprise most people, because the people that we train, they couldn't afford to pay. We're not listed as a training provider with any government programs, and so we did it because it was the best thing for us to do, and it was the best thing for the participant, because the participants couldn't pay. But we're certainly open to working with foundations and others to gain access to some tools and resources that we can somehow, I believe, have the leadership, or have me and people like you to lead to build scale in these platforms across the country.
Yeah, it's just incredible. I think what you're doing is, and you said earlier, it's probably a bit easier because you're a smaller company, but at the same time, I think it's more more of an issue of just getting out there and doing it. Taking that initial first step and walking the walk. And I think
Yeah,
a lot of people kind of look at this as like, oh, this is going to be really hard. It's difficult. And there may be parts of it, that are hard or difficult, but it's just a question of doing it. And I think there's so much that any company, regardless of their size, can learn from what you've been able to do and what you've been able to accomplish, and giving folks that, would otherwise, who knows where they would be had it not been for, some of these programs that you've put together. I just
Well,
think it's fantastic. It's a great, it's just a great example and a great model for others to take from.
Jim, thank you very much. I mean, one of the things I always say to people everywhere I go, and I was at MIT for an AI and cloud readiness program with some of the top data scientists in the world. And they often talk about how difficult things are. And I made a statement that shocked the room, is that, we cannot get addicted. We can't get addicted to easy. We understand that anything where we're having is going to have its challenges, and it's going to be harsh. And I mean, an underserved population in this country is growing. So I think, that population is growing, where we have so many people who are disconnected to training opportunities. And I believe that, what we have to do is form what I consider a radical workforce model. The same workforce model that we have done for 50 years will not work today.
Yeah, well, the fact that you were able to quote Martin Luther King, who said that decades ago, and it still resonates with people, is kind of a sad story, but it's great the work you're doing. And I just hope more people can take your model and make it real. And thank you so much for meeting with us today. And we want to make sure that they are able to connect with you through LinkedIn or through
Yeah,
your
they can get us through
company.
LinkedIn. We're at, me personally, I'm at ejackson at evanstontech.com or at info@evanstontech.com, and really willing to talk and reach out to actually anyone who's even willing to talk, who want to see what our journey's like, and how we've done it, and how we work with people like My Inner Genius and Black Math Genius and other people. That genius words keeps getting out there. But I think there is an inner genius in really all of us, and I think that we can't afford to waste any talent at all.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Are you looking to launch a digital badging program or improve an existing one? Look no further than Digital Badge Academy. Our highly popular online masterclass will help you gain the skills and insights necessary to achieve success. Enroll now and start learning today.